Olha, queria agradecer a toda a gente por ter vindo, em nome do PT Jug. Eu sou Samuel Santos, aqui o João Nelas também já lhe passo a palavra. E. Passo a palavra. Também falas um bocadinho, só para ver qual é a experiência de falar pelo micro. Não? Não tem grande coisa a dizer. É só dizer bem-vindos. Quem é a primeira vez que vem ao PT Jug? Pronto. Então ainda são muitos, fixe. Pronto, e normalmente nós costumamos ter mais gente, mas em julho já sabemos como é que é, julho e agosto a gente nem costuma fazer, mas como o António vinha cá de férias, não podemos deixar passar esta oportunidade de ter mais uma vez no PT Jogo e tivemos que organizar em julho. Para a próxima, ele já disse que para o ano vai mudar as férias para junho ou setembro. Pronto, e quisemos aproveitar isto e organizamos agora neste mês, que é um bocado complicado. Pronto, para quem não veio, quem é a primeira vez, isto costumam ser talks de Java de intermédio a avançado, tipicamente. Já tivemos queixas que às vezes são um bocado complicadas, mas sempre que a gente tentou fazer uma um bocado mais simples, ainda temos mais queixas a dizer que são demasiado simples. Por isso, acho que vamos manter a mesma onda. Pronto, e acho que é só. Quem é que ainda não conhece o António? É? Também não apresenta, ele apresenta-se depois. Pronto, não tem mais nada para dizer. Queres dizer alguma coisa?
Nós fizemos uma mudança há uns tempos e criámos o grupo do Jugo no Meetup. E daquelas pessoas que são novas cá, que vieram cá pela primeira vez, onde é que vocês ouviram falar do Jugo? No Meetup? Por colegas? Alguém daqui da empresa que está a apoiar o evento? Me ajudou, não é? Sim, mas aqueles que já vinham antes, já estão comprados. Agora é que os outros queremos. Está bem.
Pronto, olha, uma coisa que a gente queria pedir é se nos conseguirem ajudar a divulgar ainda mais o PT Jug, nós começamos com um grupo no Google Groups. Passamos os 700 membros, já é um jogo bastante grande. Com 700 membros já não é qualquer um. Mas aderimos recentemente ao Meetup e então as pessoas ainda estão devagarinho a aderir ao Meetup, ainda não chegamos aos 300 no Meetup. Mas uma coisa que temos visto é desde que aderimos ao Meetup, tem aparecido muito mais gente nos eventos do que aparecia antes. Portanto, aquilo ajuda, o efeito Meetup ajuda na organização dos eventos. Mas pronto, eu acho que é só. Queres dizer mais alguma coisa? É? Já estão fartos de nos ouvir? Agora estamos aqui a fazer stand-up comedy, mas é a primeira vez para mim. Diz. Ok. Ele estava assim a fazer projetos, a dizer que depois de ajudar, quem quiser juntar-se a nós para ajudar, é bem-vindo, não é? E? Hã? É? E depois. E no final ainda vamos sortear uma licença do IntelliJ ID. Está bem? Se alguém quiser, se ninguém quiser, eu fico lá. Ok? Então vá. É tudo certo. Eu já me lembro de ter dado uma já. Então vá. Muito obrigado a todos por terem vindo mais uma vez e vamos começar. Palminhas para o António.
Boa tarde, muito obrigado por ter vindo. Eu estou de férias, está a 34 graus e por acaso hoje de manhã até estava na praia e a pensar vou ou não vou. Então, muito obrigado por ter vindo. Chamo-me António Gonçalves, mas em França chamam-me Goncalves. Oh, I have to switch to English? How many people do not speak Portuguese at all? Okay, there's one. Is it okay if I speak English? Okay. Where are you from? Okay. So you speak French? Okay. I, I'm not sure why I was given the microphone. Maybe. No, I'm fine with. I've already done this talk in English, so I'm fine. Switching to English if it's okay with everyone. Yeah, so I was introducing myself, and my name is Antonio Gonçalves, but I'm born in France. I grew up in France, and it was a time where typewriters didn't have the C, so all the Portuguese who are born in France in the 60s and 70s are called Goncalves. Now with computers, my daughter is called Gonçalves. So basically, I grew up in France. I've studied in France. I worked there. I lived there, and but I've always kept touch with Portugal, and that's why I can speak a little bit of Portuguese. And in a technical point of view, I've been doing Java for a long, long time, since '98. I'll be also talking about Java EE. I've been doing that since '99 because I used to be a BA systems employee. Is the sound okay? Yeah, okay. So I've been doing Java for a long time, and because I like it, I actually created the Paris Java user group. So the same thing here, but based in Paris, and that was 10 years ago. In terms of conference, I've created the DevOps France. How many of you know the DevOps conference in Belgium, created in Belgium 14 years ago? No, not many? Okay. Well, so now you have DevOps in Belgium, France, Poland, Morocco, and I think I'm missing one, UK. But UK, yeah, and the US next year. And because I've been doing Java and writing books about Java EE and stuff like that, I've been awarded a Java champion many years ago. And every year I come to Portugal on holidays, so that's why I'm here in July and August, not September. So today's talk, I'll be talking about Java EE because I like it, but also putting it to perspective. We are in 2016. Everybody seems to be doing microservices. So I wanted to talk about Java EE and microservices. Where are we today? Can we use it? Can we use Java EE with microservices? Who here does Java? Who here does Java EE? Spring? Okay. Scala? Get out. JavaScript? No, that was a joke. No, 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 you don't have to. You don't have to. You don't have to. Okay, so Angular, yeah, but Angular 2 with TypeScript, not JavaScript. So I want to come back to Java EE. Java EE is nearly 20 years old now. It was created in 99, so nearly 20 years. Application servers have changed a lot, and today we are entering the new fantastic world of microservices. Do we have to start from scratch, or can we use the knowledge that we've been working on for so many years? So let's start with application servers and see how we perceive them and how they actually are. How do we see Java EE application servers? A big block, one big block. That's how we see them. And not just one big block, but they're usually slow, fat, old, 20 years old, heavyweight. We've been hearing about heavyweight and lightweight for so many years. Boring, not sexy. if there's such sexiness in computers. So this is the way we perceive them. So let's start with the first one. Application servers are monolithic. This is how we see them, okay? The Java EE application server, a big block. It's not exactly true, because in 2006, when Java EE 6 came, no, in 2009, sorry, 2009, when Java EE came, they had this idea of the web profile, so something smaller. And we've also been talking about web containers for many, many years. So Java EE big block, who implements this big block? Well, people like Oracle WebLogic, Glassfish, WebSphere, JBoss, Wildfly. So these are the guys who implement the full Java EE 7 specification. But then, as I said, the web profile came with Java EE 6. So the web profile is slightly smaller. All these guys who do Java EE 7 must implement the web profile. So all these guys here also do web profile. But there's a few who only implement the web profile. So Apache Tommy, I don't know if you know Apache Tommy. Yeah. Caucho, not big in Europe, more an American stuff. SealPass, that's quite new. So these are the implementation that only do web profile. The big block, Java EE. And we also know that for a long time, we've been using servlet containers. That, you know, a servlet container is an application server with less services, but it is an application server. So here we find the good old Jetties Tomcat and Undertow that comes from the JBoss tools. So application server are not one block, they're 3 blocks. Well, it's not exactly true either, because here the servlet containers, most of them implement 4 specifications: servlet, expression language, and other bits and pieces. The web profile is actually 12 specifications. Here I've highlighted the most important ones. So web profile, we basically have JPA, CDI, JAX-RS, and JSON-P. And Java EE is all that, bits and pieces. Bits and pieces, each piece is a specification. It has its own release, its own life cycle. And it runs on top of a JVM, which in the near future will also be bits and pieces. You know, with Jigsaw, we will be able to pick up the bits down here. And here we come. This is our code. When we work with Java EE, an application server implements all that, and this is our code up there. And we ask our good old friend Maven to bring the rest. Who does this kind of jigsaw puzzle 8 hours a day with Java EE? Yeah, you take that, you package this in a WAR file and deploy it. So application servers are not monolithic. They've never been. They always implemented different bits and pieces with their own life cycle. But God knows why, we've always thought of an application server as a monolith. Application servers are not monolithic. Application servers are slow. That's what we hear a lot. So here I've done something. I've downloaded all the application servers that I know, the Java EE application servers. I've installed them on my machine, and I've done start, stop a few times, and take the best time. So here is the startup time in milliseconds of all the Java EE application servers. On this side, the servlet containers. Jetty, half a second. Jetty boots in half a second. Undertow boots in 1 second. Here you have the web profile, and here you have the full Java EE. If you skip WebLogic, you see that Jetty boots in half a second. Jetty does servlets. That's basically it. JBoss 7 boots in 2 seconds, and it does most of Java EE. At boot time, I will show you in the demo, but at boot time, JBoss has already started 50% of its services. So when JBoss starts in 2 seconds, you have, let's say, 50% of Java EE already heated up. So this is just to give you, we've been talking for many, many years about these two sides, you know, lightweight and heavyweight. This is the real numbers today in 2016. Web containers are fast. Java EE application servers are fast too. Glassfish and Payara, which are more or less the same. JBoss and Wildfly. Even WebSphere Liberty. I'm not talking about the full Monty WebSphere, which is a beast, but WebSphere Liberty boots in 3 seconds. Empty, of course, but you know. I've done something different. I've looked on the web, and it took me a bit of time, because I managed to find a JBoss 3. So that was J2EE 1.3. I found a JBoss 4, 5, 6, and 7. I've downloaded them on my Mac. Those didn't work, so I had to install a Windows VirtualBox. Okay, I'm staying on this side. So this is different. If you look at the red curve, it's the startup time. So I've done the same thing. Stop, start, stop, stop, and take the best time. And with the yellow line is the specification of Java EE. So here what I'm saying is JBoss 3.2.8, this guy, startup in 5 seconds. That was many years ago where JBoss was implemented 12 specifications. Today, JBoss 7 starts in 4 seconds, and it implements 34 specifications. Yep, question? Yep. Yeah. So the question is, are they comparable? No. And I will show you a different slide later. Application servers like JBoss are 15 years old, and they have become pretty interesting beasts. And I will show you an example later. So know that they're not comparable at all, because here, at the time JBoss starts up everything, now JBoss is much clever. And I'm talking here, it's because I managed to find older versions of JBoss. But basically, they're all doing the same. You know, all application servers, except a couple, have become more and more clever. So it was just to give you an idea. So no, application servers are not slow. Today, JBoss, Wildfly, Glassfish boot in 2 seconds. Applications consume resources. You know, we see them as beasts that consume CPU and RAM. Again, I did the same example. I start up all the application servers, and I checked with JConsole the heap, the JVM heap, used garbage collector, waited a few seconds, and basically here you have at Bootstrap, the minimum memory usage and the maximum. And again, you see that Jetty takes 60 megs of RAM, Tomcat 70, but on the same time, JBoss takes 120, Wildfly 9, only takes 100. Even, even WebLogic is not that bad. Takes 250 megs, of RAM. So, again, I wanted to show you that because a lot of these old ideas come from a very old age, and we still have, stick to those numbers. These are the real numbers today. Now I'm gonna talk about something. So this was just facts. Now I'm going to talk about something that is happening. It's not standardized yet. Maybe it will never be, but I'm sure it will. I wanted to talk about the packaging. Okay, so this is our world. JVM, bits and pieces. Java EE application server, bits and pieces. Our code, bits and pieces. How do we package that and how do we make it run? Well, we have only two options. What we call the skinny wall. Take the code, the dependencies, package that in a WAR file, and deploy it on a running application server. This is what we do in Java EE. The application server does everything, so let's give it the minimum. We call that the skinny wall. The guys who come from Spring are more used to what we call a fat wall. The fat wall is I run on a servlet container, and I package everything. So if you do a Spring application, you will have to package Hibernate, Rest Easy, or Jersey, Bean validation, and so on. Because Spring does not implement a runtime. It says, I can package everything, put everything in a WAR file, and deploy it on a Jetty or the Tomcat, and it will run. So that's what we've been doing for 15 years. Skinny WAR, fat WAR. So I'm going to do a demo, and I'm going to play with this demo a few times. Oops. So I'm going to show you a web application, the way we do it today. So it's a web application that sells books and CDs. I know it's out of fashion, but books and CDs. And this web application actually relies on two services. Let's call them microservices. Top Books, that gives you the top selling books, and Top CDs, which is a service that gives you the top selling CDs. So I'm going to play with that. So here I have a Maven structure, a Maven project with Top CD, Top Books, and Top and CD Bookstore. Top CD, I'm using a very simplest servlet. So here I only have one servlet, and it doesn't do much because it's going to create JSON by hand. So I don't use any framework. And basically, that's going to create a JSON object with random numbers. That's all. So here I only have one servlet, and if I look at the POM XML, I actually just depend on servlet. So Top CDs, Maven clean package. That's going to create a WAR file, and as you can guess, a very small WAR file. 5Ks. There's only one servlet. I don't think there's, even XML. So what do? Here I am. I start up Wildfly. So that's the community edition of JBoss. See here, it booted in 4 seconds, and it actually started 267 services out of 553. And I go to the administration console, and I upload my top CD. So here I am. Oops. Oh, sorry. Not in the right location. Oh, where is it? Yeah. Target. Top CD WAR file, 5Ks. I deployed, and here I can see my top CD. So, as I said, it's just 5 random numbers from 1,100 to 1,200. Now I have another service, Top Books, that gives me the top selling books. It's a bit more complex, technologically speaking, because there's actually a database. So here I have a query that's going to return the top rated books. I have an entity with an ID and ISBN. I have a REST endpoint. So here I'm doing JAX-RS injection, and I return, 5. And I have some utils and stuff like that. I have a beans XML with not much. So now I go to Top Books. I do the same thing. Maven clean package. And the WAR file is very small, 10Ks, because I only have 6, 7 classes. So let's deploy it. So I have a WAR file, Top Books. I deploy the Top Books. And here I have a service that returns 5 top selling books. Now let's go for the full Monty CD bookstore. It's actually a beast. It does everything. There's authentication, database, bin validation, constraints. As you can see, the model is quite complex because books are written by authors and CDs, are wrote by artists. So there's also a registry, REST services, and a JSF web application. Yes, JSF. So if I do a Maven clean package, this time the WAR file is going to be slightly bigger because I use JSF. I also use Prime Faces and jQuery. So I have a 5 megabytes application. Now I deploy the WAR file. And here, oops. So it takes a bit of time. And now I have this CD bookstore. Here I have my top rated books, top rated CDs. And if I connect as an administrator, I can see my profile and I have an admin console. I can look at all the database, do search, etc., etc. So it's like if I log out and log in as a user, Anakin, I can buy books, can click on buy. I have a shopping cart. So just to show you that three very different applications, from very simple one, top CD, to very complex ones. And just to show you that this CD bookstore actually needs the 2 extra services. If I undeploy top books, I don't have my top rated books anymore. So it's really, I have these 2, let's call them microservices, and here I have a web application that interacts with these services. Okay, so that was just to set up setup example. Let's go back some slides. So here, I've showed you that technically I have 3 different applications with very different needs. Um, the CD bookstore uses most of Java EE. There's even EJBs. So it uses all that. It doesn't use Batch and JMS, but it uses most of Java EE. The top books doesn't use JSF and EJB, but it's actually quite complex. There's a database, there's transaction, and so on. So technically, it uses the web profile, and the top CD only uses the servlet. That's all. What a waste! We've packaged this application in 3 WAR files, and we deploy the small one and the big one in the same application server. It's a bit of a waste. So that's what we've been doing for 15 years. But now there's something new. Let's package what we need in a Uber jar. Okay, so let's just package the bits that we need into an executable jar file. So CD Bookstore will look like that. I will skip all the unnecessary bits. Top books, smaller, and top CDs, even smaller. I just package my code with servlet container, package that in a jar file, and that's it. Well, actually, we can do that. We can do that in Java EE for quite a long time now. I'm going to use Wildfly Swarm. I don't know how many of you have heard about Wildfly Swarm. Okay, a few. Cumuluzi also is a open source framework that won the JCP award. So in the Java EE space, we can do that. Package bits into jar files. Who knows Spring Boot? Oh, many more. Spring Boot, brought this idea of fat jar. It's sort of Java EE because it doesn't implement full Java EE, but it actually implements a few bits. And others, we've been talking about microservices for many years now. Drop Wizard was here before. And so there's plenty of frameworks that do not do Java EE. But I'm here to show you that in the Java EE space, we can do things. So I'm going to show you a demo of Wildfly Swarm. Go back to the top CD. It's the easiest code. Top CD, one servlet. If you look at the POM XML, it says I need to package it in a WAR file, and it just the servlet API. Can you hear me? Yes, you can. If I go down the POM XML profile, I'm going to have to shout. Here I've created a profile. So I'm going to use this Swarm profile. I just depend on a fraction. So Wildfly has this idea of fraction. This servlet only needs undertow. It only needs the undertow fraction. And I'm using a Wildfly Swarm plugin because it has to do a bit of magic behind, and we will discover this magic a little bit. So I'm saying, please Wildfly Swarm, package my WAR file. Okay, this is a WAR file. Package this WAR file with the undertow fraction, and I'm going to listen to port 8081. So I go back to my top CD, Maven clean package, and this time I use the Swarm profile. Remember that this servlet, the WAV file only was 5 kilobytes. Now I have a 37 megabytes jar. It is an executable jar. So I'm going to do Java jar, top CD swarm, and you're going to see logs that you remember because there's actually undertow logs. And now I go to the top CD, just the port number that has changed, and it's working. Question?
Doesn't Wildfly Swarm have a way of saying, please analyze my application and tell me what the dependencies are?
Yep. Here I'm putting the fraction by hand, and I will show you more later. But yeah, actually you can give it your WAR file and tell Swarm, please tell me which fraction I need. And it can actually give you the list of fractions that you can put to your POM XML, or he can try his best and put the fraction he thinks are needed. Yep. Top books, as you know, top books slightly more complex. So here, same idea, package a WAR file. And with the Swarm profile, I'm saying you need undertow, that's for the HTTP stuff, JAX-RS and CDI, and JPA fraction. So here I'm saying I need 3 fractions instead of just 1. So top books, I have a 10 kilobytes WAR file, and if I package it with the Swarm profile, it will be slightly bigger, close to 100. And as you can imagine, yeah, the Swarm plugin longer because it needs to put all the fractions and the WAR file. So now I have a 100 megabytes jar, Java jar. Here I've told Swarm to listen to port 8082. So now it started up, and I'll go back to top books. Here it goes, it's working. And believe it or not, I can do it with a CD bookstore. So here I'm saying to Swarm, I need JAX-RS, CDI, JPA, EJB, JSF. So I don't know if you can call it a microservice, but hey. And you tell, again, please, Wildfly, Swarm, package this slightly, longer because it needs to package all this. But the good thing is it will work the same way. The jar file is going to be huge. I will show you. I will give you 125 megabytes, and I'll just go Java jar, and it will work. Java EE log of JBs and JNDI and so on. This is JNDI. There's a H2 database, Mojara, and here it goes. Here I CD Bookstore web application. Como é que faço? Em cima da mesa? And now, how do I speak like that? Like that? So, yeah, but I need to walk. So I've just shown you how to package things differently. And then I will show you actually what's inside this jar file. And what about multiple applications? So let's say we have the top CD. It's a fantastic microservices. Uh, it does the job well, and it does the job so well that we want more. You know, that's the entire idea of the microservices. You take something and you scale it. They're so small that you can have thousands running. With this, it's good. You know, we have packaged everything into a jar file, so you can deploy that in in any server and just go Java jar. So you can have thousands, and we could say that's it. That's a good packaging. Actually, Wildfly Swarm goes further. I don't know how useful it is, but just to show you that the world is changing a little bit, there's redundancy here. See this blue box, the servlet, the undertow fraction. It's redundant. Let's get rid of it. Why? Because it could be in the Maven repo and just point at it. So this is also a way of doing. I'm going to show you. So if I package everything into a jar, I have 37 megabytes because there's the undertow fraction. If I package with a different profile, M2 repo, the jar file is going to be smaller. And if I look at the POM XML, it's not much. Sorry. So here the profile, no, top CDs. Here the profile swarm just says I need undertow and please listen to port 8080. And here I have another profile that does exactly the same thing. The only difference is here. Do not bundle the dependencies. That's the only difference in the two profiles. So I go back from a 37 megabytes jar to a 9 megabytes. There's our code, there's some Bootstrap APIs for Wildfly Swarm, and there's actually links to the Maven repo. And that works. So if I do Java jar, look, the first log that you see is dependencies not bundle will resolve from local repo. And it's working. I can show you that it's working. So that's another way of packaging. Question?
So, do you use this in production?
No.
Okay.
No. No, but it can be useful on a developer's machine or in environment. It's good to you have your Maven repo because Wildfly Swarm is actually clever. If it's not in the Maven repo, well, it's going to ask Maven to download it. So the bootstrap time might get long. So no, I would not use that in production, but it's just to show you that we are entering a new packaging mode. I wasn't expecting that. When the Swarm guys did that, I was first of all was what the fuck? What I'll never use that. But it's quite interesting, and I will show you what's inside the package later. They've actually created links to the Maven repo with empty jar files and so on. So they quite did a bit of tricking to get that running. I found it, amusing more than useful, but just so we know that the packaging is evolving. Some metrics. I like numbers. Here, this blue box is when you go online and download Wildfly. So Wildfly 10, if you download it, zipped file, it's 140 megs. That's the entire Wildfly. Here, it's the top CD, 37 megabytes. The top books, 100, and the CD bookstore that is more or less the size of the entire Wildfly, the size of the war. So we have 5 MB of code, of business code, and then it's just, you know, the fractions that are needed. So that was just to give you a rough idea that, you know, it makes sense when we have small things, we can gain, you know, a lot. And here I'm just talking about disk size, but same thing happens for startup, memory, and so on. Startup time. Here in blue, you have the reference. Wildfly 10, start, stop, start, stop. Wildfly starts in 2 seconds, empty. Top CD, if we package the top CD in a jar, it starts up in 1 second because it just needs the undertow fraction. Underneath, it's the top CD, but deploy in a WAR file. So when I boot Wildfly with the top CD, it takes 2 seconds plus 2.5 seconds. Same thing for top books. Only top books starts up in 3 seconds and something, in a WAR, etc., etc. But look at that. You know, I wanted to show you something. CD bookstore. I package it in a jar file, and it starts in 7 seconds. If I take the CD bookstore as a WAR file on its own, it starts in 8 seconds. You know, I put the CD bookstore WAR, just one WAR file, start up Wildfly, it takes 8 seconds. Here, it's the 3 web applications. I've deployed the 3 web applications, CD Bookstore, Top Books, Top CD, and the entire thing deploys in 6 seconds. Then I rang my friends at JBoss and said, what's happening here? One application takes 8 seconds, 3 applications, 6 seconds. And that was to come back to your first questions. Application servers have evolved a lot. What's happening here? Wildfly starts. Then Wildfly is clever enough to say, hey, I have 3 web applications to deploy. Let's start with the smallest one. It warms up undertow. Job done. Then it goes, there's a second application. Let's start with the smallest one. Top books. Undertow is already warmed up. It warms up JPA, bean validation, and CDI. And CD Bookstore arrives at the end and goes, everything is warm up. I just need the EJB and JSF. Job done. It's quite clever. Very, very clever. So JBoss 3 wasn't doing that at all. It's just to show you that application servers have evolved, and today they can even do tricks like that. How do I manage it? You know, it's you go to production and you go, hey, just go Java jar. And the production guys go, yes, and what's inside? And you will go, Bob, you know, which port it's listened to? What is the name of the data source? What is the name of the JMSQ? You know, is the user password in clear in your code? Where is the property files? How do I manage this? Give me the number of threads running. Actually, with Wildfly Swarm, there's 2 ways of doing. One way is doing Java code. So here, the top CDs, I just have one servlet, no main class, but I could actually have done that. I could have written a main class and go, I'm going to tell Wildfly to create a new container, start it, and deploy the application itself. And I'm going to define a new data source fraction with H2 driver and so on, with the user and password. And Wildfly Swarm has an API where you can, parameter everything. HTTP port, HTTPS, number of threads, memory, etc., etc. So it gives you an API to basically administer your JBoss the way you do with your admin console. You package that into your jar file, and Wildfly Swarm will bootstrap your application, configuring it first. So that's one way of doing. And of course, because this is Java code now, anything is possible. You can externalize your properties in a property file. You know, so now with that, you can put the configuration externally or internally. And Wildfly Swarm did something a bit smarter, something that I like. I'm going back to the top CD. Now I have another profile called Swarm Management. And this time I add the undertow fraction as usual, but the management fraction. Who here knows JBoss and Wildfly? Okay, I thought it was a bit more. So you are used to the admin console and the JBoss CLI command, maybe? So for those of you who already know JBoss, who already know the CLI command, you can add it as a fraction, and it will work. So here I have top CDs. I'm gonna package it with this new profile called management. The jar file will be slightly bigger because I have one extra fraction, but it's peanuts. Oh, peace and quiet. I go Java jar. It starts as usual. The application is working. Here it is. But now the good thing is I can go to JBoss, or you can go to your, the DevOps guys and say, it's just a JBoss instance. So you can administer it through JBoss CLI. I connect, and here I am. I'm connected to this service. I can go deployment info, and it will tell me, actually, in your JBoss, there's a war running. So that's quite interesting. I've studied a jar file, and JBoss CLI is saying there's a war file running in your jar file. And now I can administer it. I can here, for people who know JBoss, I only have 6 subsystems instead of the full Monty. So I can, check read the resources of the undertow like I would normal JBoss. So there's a jar running, there's a war running on my jar. Let's have a look at this jar file, 37 megas. I unzip the jar file, and if I have a look at this structure, sorry, I'm scrolling up. Here I am. I can see there's some Wildfly Swarm configuration, bootstrap, dependencies. There's all the XML junk. Look, here is my WAR file. So inside my jar, there is actually my WAR file. And then there's even this directory they call M2 repo. They could have named it lib or something like that. But no, they've chosen to call it M2 repo. And here, we let Maven bring the entire planet. So undertow, servlets, WebSockets, CDI, and so on and so forth. So and then you have the entire JBoss module system. So that's why here there's also some junk. So yeah, there is a war inside my jar. And what about Docker? Who here uses Docker a bit? So for those of you who use Docker with Java EE application server, when it's working, it's working. But before it works, there's a bit of work to be done. Well, now with things like that, the Dockerfile is quite simple. You just use the JDK 8, or even I could have used the Gyre. You'll expose a port, and you just do that, and you just go java.jar. You don't have to have hundreds of lines to start up your Java EE container. Demo. So here I have my Docker file. Let's go to the top CDs, sorry. Um, the Docker file, I'm just saying I had the Java jar, sorry, the top CD swarm jar to a directory, and I go Java jar. And that's the only thing I do. So if I run Docker, so here I'm running Docker for Mac, but I can't see it. Oh, yeah, here it is. So Docker is starting, and with these 4 lines of code, I will start my service if Docker starts. I'm not sure it needs the web to download, check some stuff, but yes, here it is. Okay, so I have my Docker file here, and I just go Docker compose, 4 lines of code, and that's it. So my Docker file is quite simple. It's just seen as a jar file. The entire Java EE application is just seen as something like an executable. So here it is, it's working. And my friends, I'm gonna ask you to trust me. All these things actually work on a Raspberry Pi. I'm on holidays, so I didn't bring it because the Raspberry Pi is small.
I can actually tell that it is true. I see it live on Devox UK.
You saw me in London. So I was doing this demo on a Raspberry Pi 2. I didn't bring it because I'm on holidays, and the Raspberry Pi is that big, but then you need the keyboard, then you need the mouse, then you need the Wi-Fi, then you need 4 cables, and then you end up with a box like this. And same thing, I took the basic Raspberry Pi with Raspberry Linux distribution, and you just go Java jar, and the 3 services work. So some final words. What I like about Wildfly Swarm, but others, I was talking about Payara, Tommy, Tommy, Micro, Payara, etc., etc. What I like with Wildfly Swarm is because I know JBoss, I'm comfortable in this world. I can administer it. I can, the dialect is something known for me. The good thing with Wildfly Swarm is, of course, it bundles with all the Java EE fractions, but it comes with much more. So for those of you who know Netflix, projects like Ribbon, Asterix, and so on, it's actually integrate quite well. For those of you guys who do some Spring, use a decent web container. Tomcat is, that's the end of Tomcat. Undertow is much, much, much faster, much faster. So there's actually a Spring fraction. You can use Spring Boot with Wildfly Swarm, and then Logstash, ELK, Swagger, and so on. So it's quite rich. Here I've concentrated on Java EE, but the ecosystem is very rich. And just to finish in one slide, Java App Servers. Java EE application servers have changed. I hope I've showed you with some real numbers. They are not monolithic, slow, consume resources. That's things from the past. Technology now has evolved a lot. You can package the way you want now. We've been doing ERs, WARs, skinny WARs, fat WARs, and so on. But now we have this new thing with Uber jars. What I like is I can reuse my Java EE expertise. If you are an expert in JPA, JTA, and so on, now the world is moving into microservices, and you might felt a bit on your own. No, if you have your Java EE expertise, you can use it. You know all the technical Java EE bits, you know the business. Now there's just the microservice world to discover and the microservice patterns, what is going to be in my service registry and so on. So that's a new things to learn. But forget about what you already know. Java EE is still okay, and you can use it to do microservices. So, if you want to do microservices, you can use Java EE. And if you don't, it's not a big deal. IT is full of fashion. Now we are living in a world of microservice fashion. In 2017, it's going to be the serverless fashion. And we will see for 2018. So, if you don't do microservice, don't be ashamed. You can actually express it, be proud of it if it works, and if the piece of software is good. I just wanted to show you that today, even with Java EE, we have all these opportunities, do the good old way or the new way. Just do it good. I'm fed up of shitty software. When I go to a website to buy a train ticket and it doesn't work, that pisses me off. If they use microservice or big service or scales, as a user, I'm pissed off every day. I don't know about you guys, but I'm a developer. I go online, I buy my tickets, I I I register for tickets. I'm waiting for my taxi. And somewhere in this planet, there's a developer who pissed me off. The taxi is not coming. So just fashion is good, but doing stuff that are usable and people are happy about it, just think about the misery you can create on this planet. Thanks.
Okay, so now we can have some Q&A, and then we will have a small coffee break before we give the IntelliJ license, okay? Yeah, before dinner as well, yeah. Usually we have two talks, so the coffee break is in the middle, but today it's only one, so we will have coffee break and dinner.
And you can ask questions in Portuguese, and I can, just
Yeah,
feel free to ask questions in
English, Portuguese,
French.
French,
I'm fine with
okay,
French too.
Russian. Who wants the micro?
Or just shout if you are shy, and I'll repeat it. Wildfly. All the tests I've been doing here, when here I've started the application server here. I did the standalone, and that's Wildfly 10. So Wildfly and JBoss, there was this confusion of JBoss Community Edition and JBoss EAP, and you never know what you were doing. And a couple of years ago, the JBoss guys, 2 years or 3 years now, I can't remember, they had this idea of doing a different name, which is what Red Hat has been doing for all the products. You have Fedora and Red Hat Enterprise Linux. It's the same code base, but the Q&A is different, the SLAs and so on. Same thing happened. Red Hat was a bit pissed off with the entire JBoss thing, so they just gave it another name. And the way it works is you have the Wildfly branch, and one day they take the branch, call it JBoss, and actually the Wildfly just goes on, and the JBoss, they take bits out of Wildfly. Usually JBoss is a bit smaller than Wildfly because they take all the things that are not
That's not GBoss. That's GBoss EAP.
EAP. Yeah.
Yeah. The point is that there was a lot of confusion between the GBoss community
And JBoss
and
EAP.
the GBoss application server, which are two different things. So to stop that confusion, the GBoss application server, which was the open source one, is now called the Wildfly, and GBoss now is the community and not the application server. But you still have GBoss EAP
Yeah.
for the enterprise.
But you have to remember that EAP and Wildfly are the same code base with some differences, but they have the same code base. Other questions? Cerveja? Cerveja.
Rui, the coffee break is on this room or on the other one? Okay, so let's go to the coffee break and 10, 15 minutes come to this one to give the IntelliJ license, okay? Okay.